Okay, at this time, I would entertain a motion to open the public meeting of the Holyoke Planning Board for December 12th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
By roll call vote, Rosanna,
Yes, ma'am.
Nathan,
Yes.
Grunander,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
and Mimi.
Yes.
Mimi, I just saw a message in the chat from a JL who is not unable to mute. I don't know who, oh, Jeffrey Lindenquist. And he's still here. I don't know what topic he was here for.
Yeah, I don't see the chat. I will have to enable it. Okay, I have the chat. I don't see him there, just you.
Okay, so he must have just emailed me directly. Did you want to hear from him?
Yes, good evening. Jeff Lindequist. I was here on the ESG matter. I tried to waive when you asked for public comments, but I believe I was slow on the video and in the chat. I represent the landlord, Ben's Holdings. I believe the ESG folks have left, so I don't know if you wish to hear from me now or if I should come back at a later date.
Well, is Jane still here? Jane,
Yes.
may we hear from Mr. Lindquist?
You did continue the public hearing, so I would probably think that it would be better if he appeared at the continued public hearing and spoke at that point.
Okay.
Okay.
How would I be perhaps next time how would I be recognized? I wasn't able to be seen.
Obviously didn't see you quickly enough.
Sure.
And, for one thing, at this point, we will be alerted to your presence and know that you want to speak.
Okay,
Uh,
fair enough.
but yeah, I think if you want to just check in with us ahead of time, maybe by email to remind us.
Certainly.
But I will certainly be looking for you on the
Okay.
night.
Very well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, meeting is open.
Okay, so ESG was continued. We now have the section 7172 review letter for ESG, which is not a public hearing. And I think we all saw a draft of that letter.
Right, there were still some outstanding items that we need resolution to before, staff can draft a letter to that, so presumably that will just be tabled until the next meeting day, January 9th.
Okay, sounds good to me. All right, so we're on to the zoning text change for the banners. And we just closed that one. And we kind of started the discussion and left it off to close the public hearing and move to the actual public meeting. But this is up for a recommendation to the ordinance committee. My sense is that we have all agreed that the language now reflects what they want and what we want. And this should be a simple recommendation, and obviously we're going to have to vote on it in a moment. But does anyone want to look at the actual language one more time before we vote on it?
Yes, if you guys don't mind, please.
Okay, Sharon, have you got that?
I hear him, but I don't believe I only have one screen and I'm not in a position to screen share.
Okay.
Jeff, can you?
Can you just email us, please? Be better.
It's in the Google Drive, so if we can just open up the Google Drive, we can see it from there. I just don't think I can. Give me a second.
Yeah, I'm looking for it too.
This may work. Planning, December.
I think I can share my screen if you would like me to do that.
If you can just give me 1 second, because this could be a great test. To see if I can do this. This is for the banners and sign exemptions. Section review other business minutes, Poot. I don't see a folder. Oh, right here. They put it here. Got it. Okay, it's up. You know, you get pretty spoiled with a couple of screens. All right, now I got to get back to Zoom. All right, screen share. Oh, there it is. There we go. All right, we see that.
Yes.
Great.
So yes, where it says that, where that blank is right there, yes, Sharon, it would be 30.
30. So would this be for me to edit and then send off, or Jane, this is all you?
I can do it.
Okay.
Yeah,
And-
the ordinance has a meeting tonight. So if the board votes on it tonight, then I'll send it over to ordinance to Jeffrey right away so they can have it.
Sounds excellent.
And it doesn't need a cover letter at some point from plan. Okay. Okay. Easier.
Oh my gosh, am I frozen?
No.
You're not.
Looks like I am, and there's a horrible face.
It's only on your end.
No, no, no. There are no horrible faces on your end.
Oh my gosh.
I know that feeling, but you need not suffer through it.
Okay.
Jane, when you send it over, are you able to see us that it got sent with the proper
Absolutely.
language? Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Are we good on this?
I'd love to say goodbye to this.
Same.
Okay. So when everyone is done reading it, is there a motion to recommend this ordinance change to the city council?
Absolutely. Hallelujah.
I thought you would say that. Is there a second?
Also, I should say hallelujah too. Second.
All in favor?
By roll call vote, Rosanna,
Yes, ma'am.
Nathan,
Yes.
Gernander,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
and Mimi.
Yes. All right.
Next is
Sorry, Sharon. You were
I was
saying?
just saying, next is tiny houses.
Next is tiny houses. And we are making some actual.
So, you know, for what it's worth. Right,
Please.
if I may just. The tiny house subcommittee, it's a small group. We just met on Thursday.
It's tiny, in fact.
Exactly, yep. So we met on Thursday morning, my Lauren, Alex, and myself met and further discussed this. And in the drive, you should see that there was a letter, a synopsis letter from Lauren to staff that we later sent to you all. And so those were the things that came out of the meeting in her summary. And are things that probably will need to be answered before we can really move forward. But, you know, and that's related to area or size of the units, the dimensional setbacks and size of the lots, that are these to be towable? Can two single tiny homes go on one lot, that kind of thing? That's number 4, and so forth. But one of the things that we found currently is that under the current ordinances, we already essentially allow for tiny houses, the city of Holyoke does. And right now, under an RM 20, 40, or 60 zoning, we could basically do multiple residential units. And that would also be under section 5 of the subdivision regulations, which were also in the drive, that show, I think I just saved the cover page of it there for reference, but that, it's a procedure for submission and approval of plans for more than one building per dwelling, for dwelling purposes per lot. And then, also under our current zoning ordinance, we've got, obviously, the dimensional use chart, which would allow for certain coverages, max building. And then, for what it's worth, we have a definition currently, which, lists, in this case, mobile homes, but the definition, just for the discussion's sake, perhaps, is, any vehicle without motive power designed, constructed, or reconstructed, or added. Sharon, for its worth, this is in the folder too, under the tiny homes. And it's zoning related. But designed, constructed, reconstructed, or added to by means of accessories in a manner to permit the use and occupancy thereof as a dwelling unit, whether resting on wheels, foundation structures, or other support, but constructed so as to permit its occasional movement over a street or highway. So we're just kind of throwing that out there, that currently under table 4.3 in a residential A zone, we can have a residential mobile home park, knowing that we have a definition, as I just read and as seen here on this document. But but it is allowed with a special permit of the city council in an RA. So we already kind of allow them in an RA district on some level, though under the definition of mobile home. But so eventually we would need to define what a tiny house actually is, or maybe it's a hybrid version of what we have before us. But that, under section 5.2, we allow for multiple in RM 20, 40, 60. In section 10-2-5, applicability for site plan review, we're already allowing for situations of more than 4 residential units per lot. And so, right now, we're already kind of allowing it. So I'm just, but we need to further define the things as noted in Lauren's letter. So I'm just opening that up for board discussion. Yeah, up for open discussion.
I thought of, as I was reading through this is a great summary that was sent. I had a couple other questions. I think the question about defining like what the size of a tiny home is both important and interesting to see the way they're defined in various places. I wonder whether there's any not really objective, but is there a standard set out in any kind of national or statewide literature about what size a tiny home is? And it's also, to Rosanna's point before about being visual, it's really hard to understand how big any of these things are without seeing something that is actually that size. So as we go farther into this discussion, it'd be great to, be able to see some visuals about what might be
as
a
an
tiny
example, a parking space as delineated under section 612 of the zoning ordinance is 9 by 18, so that's 172 square feet. I don't know if that's the kind of idea of what you're looking for. Are you looking for, I guess all tiny homes, they could be self-built, self-constructed, or whatever. So, but I'm just using the parking space as an example. That's 172 square feet.
Right.
With the tiny home that one Holyoke brought to Holyoke, is that a good visual example of what they're speaking of? Because didn't they bring one in?
That was an ADU, but it arguably is, sure.
So how big was that one, Jeff?
Oh,
Do you
Mike,
know?
I believe Mike Moriarty can perhaps better answer
Oh,
that.
there you go. How you doing, Mr. Moriarty? Talk to us. First, unmute yourself.
I'm working on it. It's all set.
Thank you. How's everyone doing this evening? Good. So
Good.
I'll go into more details about what we hope the destination and the use of the tiny house is going to be when we get to that point in the agenda. But the structure that is on the corner of Middle and Main Street is 350 square feet. It's got the capacity to add a bedroom, and that would make it a 500 square foot, 1-bedroom tiny house.
So that would just be a module that they could plug on?
Yes, that's right.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so Rosanna, does that help?
Yes, I'm a visual, and I've seen that
Yeah.
one. So that way, that's why I was like, is that a good example? Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayority.
Pleasure.
I know that's not the only question we have to answer, but that's one of the things I've been thinking about is like, wow, how big, what are we really talking about? I also had a question about point 3. You know, are towable tiny homes allowed? I get that towable tiny homes would be currently allowed where a mobile home is allowed, which is only a limited portion of our zoning if it's just RA. But would a towable tiny home be allowed to count as a dwelling or as an ADU, or is the fact that it has wheels prohibit it from being counted as an ADU or a dwelling? I don't know if we know the answer.
Well, I mean, I
Question.
believe in the drafting of the ADU, in that case, for an ADU, it was assumed to have been anchored to the ground or on a foundation.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've looked at it, but I think that the proposed legislation addressing these at the state level had some information in it about when a real tiny home should be affixed to the ground before it could count. But related to that, I take the point about mobile homes potentially counting, but one of the questions that came up in the hearing for the state legislation was that apparently a mobile home and a tiny home on wheels are assessed under different building codes. So I would think we would want to check and make sure that we really were providing for mobile tiny homes under this section. We might have to make some adjustments for it to work. And I don't know the answer, but I do know that there were people who were saying, yeah, these do not count as mobile homes for purposes of the building codes.
Because a mobile home is built to certain specifications to make it roadworthy, or?
In part, I think, but also because of insulation requirements. Apparently, if I'm remembering this correctly, a tiny home on wheels requires more insulation than a standard mobile home necessarily does. But
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mimi.
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure that is it the requirement, or I guess tiny homes, I thought it wasn't really defined still, even at the state level. But I do know that mobile homes have much worse insulation than like actual homes. So,
Yeah.
Winter is a huge problem if you live in an RV or a mobile home. That's why. Well, I
Yeah.
guess, I mean, so RVs have much less worse insulation, and also what we typically call mobile homes or tractor trailer homes. These are stationary homes once you park them, but they're built not by the building code, but I understand by the National HUD standard, which is actually worse performing than state building codes.
Yeah, that was exactly the point, as I recall, is the HUD code was one thing, and the proposed mobile or tiny house on wheels was going under a different code. And it was still, it was still a mobile house, but the insulation was one of the big things that got brought up. And, it was suggested that the state legislation would have to be significantly revised simply because the mobile home standard didn't work for tiny homes on wheels. And all of this is really getting into the weeds, but when we finally address this, I would think we would have to make sure that our ordinance is consistent with what tiny houses on wheels actually has to be built to.
I want to thank the committee for moving this forward. It seems like we're getting somewhere, but is there something that, in order to keep working, is there something that you want to hear back or input you want from the whole board? Or this seems like a great status report. I was just curious about whether there's anything that we can be helpful with right now.
Well, I know that in the letter, and I think it was more or less for an update and talking points. I mean, I guess ideally it would be, I'm not sure if the board is prepared, and I'm not sure if, we all expected that you'd come up with numbers or dimensions today. But I guess I guess I can't perhaps answer that and just say that it's more or less a project update, and that if we could revisit this again on, January 9th, because January 23rd is our continued joint hearing. But if we put this on the 9th for further discussion, when Lauren will be present, and maybe at that point, the board will be prepared to speak better of, or, regarding the setbacks, the definitions, and the sizing. I think, that maybe that's probably our best approach moving forward tonight.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
And I will try to find and circulate. I've seen a feed on social media that is basically just pictures of tiny houses all the time. And if I can find the link, I will send it round just so that people can look at these things, see what the dimensions listed are, and maybe get a more visceral sense of what the possibilities are.
Yeah.
Some of them are really attractive. I was surprised.
I know this is more for later conversation. It was in the letter too, but I mean, the state health code, not the building code, but the health code actually puts minimum size for a dwelling.
Yeah.
That's another factor. And I've been to different tiny homes. I actually went to the Tiny House Festival in Brattleboro, and I think now looking back, I mean, these homes looked attractive, but they are in violation of Massachusetts health code. That is what it is. So just different dimensions to think about.
Okay, so we will take this up again on the 9th, and in the meantime, everyone can think about the issues that this letter puts in front of us. And with that, we are on to zoning text change, discussion 7.8, wireless telecommunication facilities and antennas. And we have a really impressive Chicopee ordinance that we got circulated for us all to look at. And that is long, and I don't know whether there's any point in sticking it up on everybody's screens to look at, or where everyone is in their review. But
I don't see the wireless on the planning drive. So if somebody else wants to share it.
Well, it is a long document, and I'm not sure. I would want to know whether it was the will of the board to put it up and have us go through it line by line.
I don't want to go through it line by line personally. I have a couple questions jumped out at me.
Okay,
but
go
it
for
does seem pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, I was impressed. I thought it was a great model, and although I did not expect us to go through it tonight and modify it for Holyoke. I really, my sense is it's a great starting point and would not require too much to be adopted to our city. But Kate, you want to go ahead? What jumped
Well,
out at you?
Really what jumped out at me is it seems like it's calling on us to also have some design standards for it. And so even though this seems pretty comprehensive, that seems like something else that would need to be dealt with. Like on the 4th page at 277-3 B, I guess, it says new utility poles or wireless support structures shall be designed to match the design parameters established by the special permit granting authority by regulation, or in absence of such design guidance match, et cetera, et cetera. So like it suggests that we would have design standards. And following then on just at the bottom of the page and the top of the next page, D and E talk about they should be located in such a way that they don't interfere with views from residential structures, and that they should be located as to minimize adverse visual effects on the landscape. I just feel like there might need to be some guidance about like who gets to determine that and how do they determine that, and if somebody feels aggrieved by it, what do they do?
Yeah, no, I would presume that this seems to contemplate a public hearing.
And then one other thing is that later on it says, that the applicant has to pay for legal notices of the public hearing and notice to abutters, but it doesn't define abutters to what, like how far the abutters are. So I don't know if it follows some, if there's some controlling language about how far out you go for that, or whether that's something we would need to define. And then there was some stuff about how the city gets paid that I was like, I don't have any idea about how they figured out that pricing and how we would figure that out and how we would set it. But otherwise it felt as so far as I could see, it felt pretty comprehensive. And I guess I wondered whether I know Jane had looked it over and thought it looked good, but I don't know whether HG&E has looked at it and what they think.
I don't know if they have looked at it or not. I don't know if I sent it over to John. I should. So I can double check after we're done here, screen
Okay.
sharing, if I checked that, if I sent it over to John or not.
Yeah, no, I think all of those are good points and we can address them all. Perhaps not at this moment, but certainly by the time we've determined whether HG&E has looked at this.
Yeah, I was like with Kate, like I said, reoccurring rate to be paid to the city, but it didn't say like what the rate was, how they're gonna measure it, like what is that? But that stood out for me, the whole rate thing, because I'm like, ooh.
I mean, maybe that this just references a rate and it's set somewhere else, but who sets it and how is a question. Yeah, so right there, like they'll pay an annual recurring rate of $270 per year. I worry about writing something like that into ordinance because 100 years from now, $270 isn't going to be the right amount. I mean, we're probably also not going to have small wireless on poles anymore, but.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's a federal, because they do state or any such higher rate permitted under FCC rules or federal
Yeah.
law. So it might be a federal rate that they've done, but I can look into that.
Just curious, yeah.
Yeah, and they do allow for presumably lower rates as set forth in the license agreement.
And who would be the right special permit granting authority here?
It's up to you guys. I think under this one, it's the city council, but it can be the planning board, either one, whatever you guys feel is best.
Well, I will make my usual comment. I think probably this should be planning board, but I assume that the city council will want it. Although maybe not, this is complicated. And Nathan, I do see your hand up. You want to chime in?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, who the authority is, that's a big question. But well, I'll just say now. I mean, I think I've just been holding back too much. I mean, I think it seems like the way the ordinance set up, the city council has too many special permits than they can actually reasonably handle. So adding this to their, lot, maybe that would be too much. And the other thing is, I feel like maybe if this comes to the planning board to reduce the burden, I think a lot of the permits we give out as the planning board, like high fence, sign, extra large signs, those can be shifted to the zoning board of appeals. And I don't know if they already have too much to do, but I feel like overall the ordinance can be reviewed if we're adding this type of, new layer, new complex new complex additional permit. It might be good to look at how the permitting burden is distributed across different boards and ask if the appropriate amount is given to each authority. And
Yeah.
and this is like a random thing. I only quickly looked at this, but this little language stood out to me. This is on page 7 of the PDF. It's, if we're looking at the right one. It's the top, like number 12, or am I looking at it's the one that says 277-4, and it starts, yep, right there, Sharon. Yeah. So description as to why, so on and so on. And if you look at 12B, you gotta get a community perspective, including proximity to single family residences. I mean, I don't know why care so much about single family impacts, but
Yes,
not any other types of housing.
strike out
I-
residences.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, sorry, strike out single family and just leave residences.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds very discriminatory, especially with the changes or at least the changes we're trying to introduce to the zoning geared toward more multifamily housing with different types of housing. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things I really like about this ordinance is the requirement that the applicant justify where they want to place these things.
It seems like it doesn't need a lot of work. It just needs some work and maybe needs somebody to have the time to work on it behind the scenes here.
Just an FYI, I did bring up some of the FCC information on my phone. And it looks like those fees, that 270 is
Mhm.
done via an FCC order, so they're not really just picked out of the sky. It looks like there are some of these fees are going to be under the FCC order, so that's good. There is some direction there.
Should this ordinance then just refer straight to that rather than listing numbers?
It might be helpful, because then that will remove the necessity to change it when that changes. So I think that's a good idea.
Okay, well, I assume we're going to be coming back to this and everybody is going to have a chance to reread it carefully. But is there anything else that jumps out right now that we can bring up and deal with without having to go back to it? And the next question is there anyone who feels they have time to be the lead person with this?
is it something staff has the capacity for, to work on those questions we just brought up?
I mean, I could say, sure, we always have the capacity. It's just, but it's always the capacity, right? So,
I mean, I can tailor this to be Holyoke specific and work on some of the language that we talked about tonight and recirculate it for the January 9th meeting, if that makes sense.
That'd be awesome.
That would be, yes.
Okay.
That would be fabulous. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Because we're going back to talk about it in public hearing with ordinance on the 23rd. So yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. Yeah, that's perfect timing. So, okay, that's that. And we're on to zoning text change to add a section for short-term rentals, in addition to amending section 2 definitions and any other sections that might apply to this use. And I think that I saw Devin somewhere.
well, for what it's worth, he was in his car and at 6:05, he was en route to his home. So I just texted him again to see if he's available. So just if we could just probably just give him a few minutes.
Okay, well, we can do that. And meanwhile, we could move on to the ADU issue for Mr. Moriarty.
Yes, thank you very much. I guess I should just proceed with a brief explanation of what we have in mind and why I'm here.
That would be great.
There you go. Thank you, Madam Chair. The tiny house that was gifted to us by the University of Massachusetts didn't really have a lawful place for us to locate it when it was delivered in August of 2022. There has been a change in the ADU ordinance, and we were looking for other solutions during the period of time that was pending. One thing we absolutely didn't want to do was take an entire buildable lot and put it to use for a 350 square foot dwelling unit. That seemed exceedingly wasteful and really not beneficial to us in the city or even the person living in it. So we did come up with, excuse me, sir, we did come up with a solution when UMass offered us a second tiny house, which has been just about fully constructed and is still sitting on the site where it was built near UMass in Amherst. That's a 650 square foot ADU and, well, not ADU, tiny house that could be married to the property we already have.
Yeah.
And initially we conceived of it as potentially sited as a two-family structure. The location that we decided on is 150 East of White Street. We own the adjoining properties on both sides of this lot. On the one side is 105 Northeast Street, which is a older tenement building in the flats with 8 apartments. On the opposite side of that is, I'm going to say 164 East of White, but that number doesn't sound right to me as I'm saying it out loud. But the adjoining property on East of White Street, which is a more modern 1990s built 6-unit apartment. Our thought was it would not be a bad use of this property to add a couple of additional units and basically think of the whole thing as a contiguous whole in our portfolio. So when we originally broached this, and it was a process to get a design delivered to us, we were gifted the house. We weren't gifted any money to get this paid for, but UMass also stepped up through their architecture and engineering departments and gave us stamped plans that were acceptable. When those were reviewed last month, we'd received them maybe a few weeks earlier after several months of working on it with UMass. we came up with a design with foundations that separate the two structures so people are comfortably apart from each other on a common breezeway. What we learned from the building department after that submission is that doesn't work as a two-family home. They have to have a common wall with a firewall. You can't put a giant 4-foot firewall and still have the walkway and be able to access the building. So that design would no longer work under our building code as a two-family home, which we had not anticipated as we came up with this innovative design with UMass. However, the ADU ordinance was passed last April, and it allows for a primary dwelling and a accessory dwelling next to each other. We have one structure that is 650 square feet. That would be primary. We have a second structure, which would be 350 and potentially 500 square feet. That would be accessory. What we learned also, because I finally got around to reading the text of the ordinance, is that doesn't go to the planning board. That is actually a special permit that has to be submitted to the city council. So that submission will be going in soon. Still thought it was worth the time to check in and have a look. I'm sharing with all of you by email after this meeting a very good article that the UMass magazine wrote up about the work that the design build and or design construction technology department UMass did getting us to this point. So I think that will be a more enjoyable way to read the details about this whole project than having to endure me all night. But then also very happy to share, or which I could either do now or later on, sort of what the design plan looks like on this site. Again, that may be something that's part of the special permit. It may also be part of a siting because this is in the downtown residential zone. So I think there is some review for the planning board in terms of that with dimension use. So for there, I need a little bit of guidance on how to proceed because we are dealing with two separate bodies. I will say also there is a slight non-conformance, which is not unusual in the DR zone. There are exactly 4 lots on this stretch of East White Street. And the DR rule is to take 5 adjoining lots and look for the average in terms of frontage. That does not entirely work here. We end up being off by about 2 feet. And part of that is just the unusual dimensions of that 6-unit building, which is more vertical rather than horizontal on the streetscape and has a 70-foot frontage, which impacts the averaging. And the fact that we don't have a 5th property to assist with the averaging. I think there are a lot of ways to look at that to either justify this with the overall site that we're located in. It actually fits when you think about the general nature of the neighborhood that we're in, which is, you know, a very mixed design of structures from one end of the street to the next. There are actually a couple of residential homes that are on less than 50 feet of frontage on each side of this same block, but not on East to White Street. So that doesn't entirely fit the language of the DR zone. So it's like we're very, very close, and it may be part of my special permit needs to ask for a slight dimensional variance at the city council, or it may be that that is something that is workable within the structure of the planning board and its oversight of DR zone. So there I'm looking for some structure and some guidance, but also my first opportunity to come before the board, inform you a little bit more about this interesting project, and hopefully move forward so that by the spring we can have a couple of people actually living in this net zero small dwelling, really very analogous to single room occupancy apartments in size and structure, and actually pretty nice single room occupancy apartments when you're done.
Very cool project, and I'm looking forward to seeing the article about it.
Thank you.
And I don't recall offhand the precise mechanism for doing this, but it seems to me, Jeff, didn't we just have something very like this come before us?
Well, there was a request for under section 884 to, because the dimensional, the frontage did not work. So the person sought a dimensional variation under 884 because averaging was not possible and whatnot, so.
So we should be
And I
looking
think
at,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna mention. That was it. And I would assume this would be what we need to do here too, Mike. We just had a public hearing for a dimensional variance for someone else in DR. It seems very straightforward, but I think by the regulations, we just have to have the public hearing, so we would need you to
That
file for that
sounds
and-
great. Yeah,
and
and
we
I can tee that up this winter at a subsequent meeting.
yeah.
Is there any application that's necessary? You're just working with there is an application, Sean? Okay, I'll come and see you about that in the next couple of days.
But it seems like it's pretty straightforward and we ought to be able to deal with it pretty
Great.
quickly.
Mike, I'll reach out to you and send you the application electronically.
Great, okay, thank you.
okay. So anything else we can do for you tonight?
That's plenty. I really appreciate the guidance and look forward to working with you and getting this at the end of production. Thank you.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to see people in those houses.
Yeah.
Oh, well, for all of us, believe me, it's every time you build, it's a longer journey than you plan on. The best days are the days we hand over the keys.
I bet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And okay, do we have Devin yet?
So I texted him and I asked him if he was available. He said not yet, dealing with a little crisis.
Oh, poor
So-
guy. That's never good.
So I guess if we could just continue down through planning
Yeah.
board business, perhaps we can come back to item 6 when he's available.
Yeah, and do not have executive session tonight. So this brings us up to project updates, old business, new business, and Mr. Rome's Car Wash.
In a second, I've switched over to an iPad and I'm unfamiliar with how to make him. If someone can just give him co-host abilities, then we can hear from him. Can't seem to do it.
Yeah, Sharon, I was able to get that going. All right, you should be all set, Gary.
Good evening, everybody.
Evening.
Good evening. Brian Balicki is with us. He's the general contractor for the project, and he could probably give a presentation about where we're at, and just hopefully a few short week or so, we should be ready to start cleaning cars and dogs.
Okay.
Brian, there's Brian.
And we're waiting for Alex maybe to help me out on that one.
Okay,
Should be
There
all
we go.
good.
It wasn't letting me unmute.
Okay.
As Gary said, Brian Balicki with Sage Engineering. We're the general contractor for the construction of the car wash. Been working on it since February, March of this year. The project itself is substantially complete at this point. We're in the process of going through our final inspections with electrical, plumbing, fire department, etc. over the next week. But we are here tonight requesting the board approve a temporary certificate of occupancy. The reason for this is at this time, the landscape contractor is recommending we don't put the shrubs and grasses in due to the time of year and the weather. So we'd like to have permission to come back in the spring and plant all the landscaping and the remaining grassed areas. The site's paved, all the topsoil is put in and graded. A lot of the stone bedding material has been put in, some sod's been put in some locations. They just don't want to plant the plants this time of year and have to guarantee their survival. So in speaking kind of preliminarily with Jeff on site and my experience with the building department, we'd probably be requesting a 6-month temporary certificate to get us into springtime, get the plants established, and then come back for a permanent.
No, that does make sense. Is there anything that you all can do in the interim that would do anything to shield the abutters across the street?
So there weren't really any plantings there that would have been a significant height. There was a few trees planted there, but most of it by design was low growth. The site was kind of intentionally designed to be below Whiting Farms Road, specifically where the vacuums are and the cars park. The grade is, 4
Yeah.
feet below Whiting Farms Road, so headlights won't be shining in the neighbors. Vehicle noise will be reflected back. And I don't know if the board remembers, but we put the actual vacuum units themselves are inside the building.
Yeah,
So there's no noise to screen from those. So I'm not sure what we could really do in the meantime for a temporary screening that would do any more than the permanent would in the spring.
well, fair enough. Anyone else on the board have any questions? I'm now afraid that I'm missing people. Grunander.
I don't have a question, but I went there, was passing there yesterday, and I looked the site, and it looks pretty, and ready to bring some business to Holyoke. And thank you to Guido.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Okay. Anyone else? Kate.
I think it makes total sense to not put in the plantings now. That's completely reasonable. I wonder whether just to maybe head off any potential complaints we or you might hear about the lack of landscaping, if there's anything to do to say that the landscaping is coming, or is there any, I know you don't want to put anything in permanently, but is there kind of a
Coming soon?
Christmas tree with a sign that says watch
Well,
for
we've actually-
plantings?
There are three evergreen trees that are planted already that are there. But if it pleases the board, we could probably do a sign, because our sign did show our plantings in there, and we could say, it coming soon in the spring, something like that. But it's really well hidden the way it is now, so I don't know that it's going to make any difference.
Okay, I was just wanting to head anything off if we thought it was coming, but I can understand your rationale for not putting the plants in for sure.
Yeah. We are once we are able to wash cars, we've already started our marketing, and we're offering free car washes to many, to people. They can just sign up for a free car wash. And in fact, 2 of our new employees live right next door, literally right next door. So there's a lot of excitement and interest about the car wash.
Yeah, about the dog wash too. I keep seeing people asking about that.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so does staff have any comments about this?
And I don't specifically, I did speak to Kevin Lajamonier, and he did, offer the idea, or we discussed the idea of the 6-month, and he seemed to be agreeable to that.
I was gonna say, I have read a lot on Hello Holyoke that people are really excited about the dog watch part. I think that you might get more dogs than cars, because people are really waiting for that. So when I drive by, the equipment that's outside, so those are not vacuums?
They are
that you can
vacuums.
see? They're
Yeah.
not vacuums?
They are vacuums.
They are. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought he said that they were inside. Okay.
No,
They're the
Go ahead.
end of the hose, so to speak, but the actual vacuum device is inside the building, like the noise making.
Oh, I see, said the blind man. That's right. You did demonstrate that. That's right. I'm sorry. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, anything further from anybody?
Nope.
So Brian, I think there's still some outstanding things though that I'll need before writing a sign off for the TCO. Or did I already lose Brian? Oh, no, there he is.
No, just went for a pad.
Right, so I know within the notice of decision, so if you could just please review that. I know that you've been getting me items, as you've received them, but I still think there's some plan submissions and, did you already give me your certification letter? I don't recall.
Yeah, I submitted a letter and an as-built shortly
Okay.
after we met on site, Jeff.
Okay. So with that, in the days to come, I'll be looking at to see what is outstanding and I'll put the letter together for Kevin.
All right, I don't think there's anything outstanding, but I definitely could miss something.
Okay. I'll look through that. Thank you.
Okay, and do we need a vote on this one?
It couldn't hurt. Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the 6-month TCO?
So moved.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
I roll call vote. Rosanna,
Yes, ma'am.
Nathan,
Yes.
Gernander,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
and Mimi.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. We're all looking forward to seeing this in operation.
Very soon. Thank you so much. If I don't see you, have a nice happy holiday. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, while we continue to wait for Devin and his emergency, section 840 Pood Review, 1763 Northampton Street.
Alex, you want me to screen share?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, is it of more benefit to screen share the actual site plan, or should we screen share the letter?
I would screen share, of course, I'm talking over everybody, I'm sorry. I
No,
would
please.
screen share the project plan because everyone would have copy of the letter.
Perfect.
Yes, agreed.
That's not gonna work for me.
All right.
Alex, are you able to do it?
I should be able to.
Yeah, I haven't figured out how to work on an iPad.
But if he screen shares that, he won't be able to see his letter. So should I screen share it off of my work?
Oh, I have my letter printed if that's of any.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Are you all able to see the plan?
Yep.
All right. So at this point, whatever the board prefers, I can walk you through the letter line by line, or if you'd like me to just cover areas of concern, whatever the board prefers.
Well, I would have thought areas of concern.
Okay.
Although I will defer to my colleagues if they feel otherwise. And hearing no objections.
All right. So to begin,
Mhm.
the food review for 1763 Northampton Street. They are seeking to change their use from real estate to a nursing care at home type facility. The first item of concern, I would say, is we're hoping for clarification on the application. The general notes, they kind of indicate that this is an at-home care facility, but it doesn't really elaborate how the facility is going to, the office space will be used. So we are hoping for clarification on what that actual use is going to look like.
Can I ask a question about that, Alex? Is that like because we want to know how often people are coming and going? Is that really the driving factor behind this?
Yeah, more or less. And other things like how many employees are going to be on site at any given time. Are they going to be retrieving supplies from the building, coming back and forth from site visits? But I elaborate on that further down the letter as well. With that comes the prepared plans. One area of concern is we're seeing that on these plans, they have been prepared, but it doesn't appear that there's an engineer's seal or stamp. So we can't be certain if these were prepared by a true architect or engineer or what have you.
Yeah, so we need the guarantee that they're actually accurate.
Yes, yes. Beyond that, still under 843 E, it does appear that there is driveway access from Sydney Avenue, but on the plans, it does not illustrate that the 5-foot setback has been met per the city driveway standard 6. So all driveways should be at least 5 feet from the property sideline. And on the plans, it doesn't specifically denote where that is, nor do these plans appear to scale. So it's
Yeah.
kind of for staff to evaluate the true distance to that driveway.
Yeah, and I've been on that site. So there is a driveway on Sydney, right? But then there's like where it says it's not built to site because it's a pretty big parking lot in the back, but then there's like residential houses all the way behind that.
Okay.
So like the parking lot, maybe you can fit like 4 cars there. But then they will have access, I believe, to the parking lot that's across for them because it's the same owners, if I'm not mistaken.
I know
So, but as far as back there, like, yeah, it's not scaled to this.
absolutely.
I've seen this personally and it didn't make sense. This drawing doesn't make sense to me.
The one thing to know, if I'm not trying to talk over you, Alex, but I'm going to.
Please do.
So with that, this is a re-tenanting of an existing site. Previously, it was used as when it was originally permitted back in the early 2000s. It was a real estate office on the first floor, an attorney on the second floor, and residential on the third. Now it appears, based on the limited information we've been provided, that it appears that there might be 2 livable units there, as well as now what's going to be this O'Connell Carrot Home or this nursing, staffing office on the first floor. So with that, because of the change of the use of within the professional office definition, that's why they're before us. And so with that, they're having to, we're looking at this as if it's arguably a new project. Now, I'm sure that there's going to be pushback on some of these questions, pushback from, say, the council, because after all, they're only going to see this as a re-tenanting. But these are now things that we can look at and say that they may not meet the requirements on, say. So, one of the biggest things, and I won't get into the parking because I'm sure you're still going to, but in relationship to the, under 613, you're supposed to be 5 feet away from open air parking. That's not displayed here. The driveway, by driveway standards, is supposed to be 5 feet away from the street line or edge of abutting property, and that's also not illustrated. But I won't get into the parking because I'm assuming Alex is going to get into that shortly, and I don't want to deny him the right to do that. But it's just, like I said, this is basically a re-tenanting, which is one thing we do note several times in the letter, but we still want them to at least adhere to, the parking is going to be the biggest issue here, though I'm sure it's been operating in such a manner now for years, probably without complaint. But this is the time where it can be addressed. And, Sydney Avenue, for what it's worth, on that northerly side, there have been these paver-like things put into the road for years, but then it looks like, based on aerial photography, that it was recently a concrete walk was put in. And then it's out, you can kind of see it on this plan where it says concrete walk, but then that same walk appears to be positioned in such a manner to go to the rear of the property or the rear of the structure, which is kind of curious. Was this sidewalk, which looks to be not compliant, was it put in by the current owner and then attached somehow to the house? But I know that people do park on it, for what it's worth. But I'll shut up at this point, but I'll let Alex continue. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jeff. And to your point there, when it does come to parking, we do have some concerns, and it seems to be that there needs to be some clarification on the parking. On the plans, you can see that they've denoted parking spaces on site here.
Mhm.
Part of that concern is that, let's see here. Sorry, just a moment here, just looking at my notes. All right, so yes, on the plan, you can see that there are 8 parking spaces denoted here. The
Mhm.
applicant indicated that they'll be leasing another 5 spaces from the abutting, or the business across the way of Sydney Avenue. The general notes section states that there are 20 parking spaces here on the neighboring business. But on the
Mhm.
actual line, it only represents 19 parking spaces. Now, if the newly proposed office space were to lease 5 of them, that would put this business out of compliance with the ordinance. If they did have the true 20 spaces and they were to lease 5, that would leave 15 remaining for the business here, and that would work just fine. But we would need clarification as to whether there are actually 20 spaces here or if it's the 19 as drawn.
Yeah.
We already talked about setbacks.
Wait, and they're saying they have how many on their site?
They're asserting that they have 8, and part of the concern there is you're really typically not supposed to be parking in your front yard. And based on the plane of the building, it appears that 4 of the 8 are actually in the front yard.
Mhm.
And this is a corner lot. And with that, as Jeff mentioned earlier, there is a pedestrian walkway that kind of brings you right into a parking space. So it's kind of a concern as to whether these 4 parking spaces would meet the ordinance.
Say that again?
So you're not really supposed to park in the front yard. And seeing that this is a corner lot here,
Yeah.
probably the plane of the foundation here and the plane of the foundation here would dictate these are front yards. And with that, 4 of these parking spaces appear to be in the front yard.
Even though it's in the back of the property?
Yeah, because Rosanna, imagine if, as you're walking by, there's not really a sidewalk there, but those cars are basically out to the street. They're in what is visually the yard for
But
you
there-
as a
like,
pedestrian.
There is like a little, like even if the cars are parked, there's still like a walkway. That's why I'm confused. And then there's houses right behind it where the sidewalk continues.
Right, but it's like the car is coming right up to the sidewalk or
I see
right up
what you're
to the
saying.
street
Okay, I see what you're
over
saying.
what in theory ought to be visually the
A sidewalk. Okay, I see what you're saying.
sidewalk and the yard. I mean, and not just aesthetically, but also by our ordinance.
So Nathan has his hand up. Nathan, did you want to jump
Yep,
in?
thank you, Mimi. Just quick note, I believe the owner, Paul Gallagher is here.
Yes, and he just raised his hand.
Oh, right.
So, Mr. Gallagher.
You may not be able to unmute.
Somebody has to give him co-host abilities. I can't do it.
Mr. Gallagher, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, good evening. I just joined the meeting. I just got notice. So we had actually 2 special permits here originally when I got this back in, I think, 2005. There was Attorney Kathleen Kelly on the 2nd floor, and then my brokerage on the 1st floor. So we went through all the conditions back then and we met them, with the parking requirement, utilizing additional spaces from Gossen. It was a different entity at the time, but the property next door, which I also own now. There's no parking in the front of the building. We do have a privately owned sidewalk that I installed. And by the way, I spent a huge amount of money rehabbing this property. It was dilapidated when I purchased it back then, probably over $150,000 to improve it. So, I mean, really fulfilling what that whole special permit in the overlay district meant. So in my opinion, after researching this, we have, fulfilled the parking requirement, not only, what we have for the 3 units on my 1763 Northampton Street, but also with the additional spaces on the, at the building next door. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I've certainly bought a lot of properties on the street, renovated them all, and I've never sunk a lot of money into Holyoke. I love Holyoke. I'm a Holyoke person. I went to Holyoke Catholic, Mata de la Rosa School. You know, this is my community as much as it is yours, and I take pride in everything that I own on that street.
Well, and no one is questioning that. Our issue is the actual numbers here and the fact that under our ordinances, the Sydney Avenue side of this building is a front yard, just as Northampton Street.
Right.
So,
But I have a parking lot in the back of my building, you know, at the subject property, not just the one on the left side also. So we don't like parking on the street. We tell everybody to park in the parking lot, which would be the backyard, if that makes sense.
yeah, I have people lined up to ask questions, so I'm going to go to them first. Kate?
Well, I mean, I just wanted to say that we're talking about the parking requirements and whether it fits the parking requirements, but I think that in general, I feel like knowing more about the specific uses of the building is helpful, because then we might be able to argue that you didn't need to have as much parking and that maybe you could get a variance from the parking requirements. I think sometimes our requirements call for there to have to be more parking than is actually needed. And if we could show that you didn't need as many spaces as the ordinance called for, what I'm trying to do is reassure you that what we're not trying to do is say like, oh, he can't do this because he doesn't have enough parking. That's not that's not what we're getting at here.
Sure.
Thank you. Yes.
Right. And so O'Connell Home Care is going in there. They don't see any patients there. It's just basically where they run that kind of like regional, you know, care out of. So it's just, I think there's 4 people that come in there and just coordinate. So it actually would be less than what I have there currently with my special permit for my real estate brokerage, where we have people coming in and out constantly.
Right. So if there was a clear sense of it in the narrative of both that and any other parking needs for the building, then we might be able to argue that there's less of a need.
I mean, I think it's important to make this like a simpler process for people. And, you know, as a real estate expert myself, this is a little bit challenging. You know, I mean, and you don't want to overburden people that want to come in and, you know, fix up properties, improve them. This is my feedback to you folks. I think it was confusing in many senses, but I think we tried to do the best job that we could. And we went from 2 special permits in that building to 1, and now we're just putting a smaller entity in with less traffic and impact on the neighborhood or anything.
And just out of curiosity, what were the special permits for?
My real estate brokerage, and the second floor was a law office. So we actually got 2 special permits. And then I bought out the woman that I co-own the building with, and she left, so we're down to 1. But then I bought the Gossett McLean building, and I'm moving over there, and it's, I mean, it's as simple as that.
Yeah, but is a special permit for what in particular?
I just told you, a real estate brokerage on the 1st floor and a law office on the 2nd floor. That is what is in the subject building you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I was looking for, you know, special permit to have a business in the Pood district, which I've never heard of before. Special permit to reduce parking.
We're not looking to reduce any parking.
It was special permits for the 2 uses. That's what it was a special permit to allow in the Pood the professional office as a real estate office and as an attorney.
Okay.
Right. And we met every and all requirements. And again, we bought a dilapidated building, improved the entire thing, cleaned up the neighborhood. You can drive by it. There's gorgeous Christmas lights on it right now. You know, I think we've been a benefit to the whole street, amongst all the other projects that we've had, Silk Deli, and the Gossett McLean building, which if you've seen lately has been completely renovated.
Yeah, no, I think we're talking past each other, because I don't think any of us are questioning anything you're saying. It's just that we have a set of ordinances that we are required by law to make sure that this is in compliance with.
But,
And
and I'm not arguing that at all, but we had, if you're arguing that I'm not meeting the requirements,
No.
not only have I met them, but I did beyond that when I was able to get 2 of them in there. And now I'm just going to, we're 1. So I don't see how I could be told that I'm not meeting them, is my point.
well, we have a certain number of parking spaces
Right.
that the ordinance says we have to ask for, or we have to find a way to get you a special permit to reduce that number of parking spaces.
Right.
That's-
But
and-
you're understanding I'm using my adjacent property to fulfill those additional spaces that are required, correct?
We understand that. We're just trying to get an accurate count so that we know what precisely we're looking at. And so that if there is any issue at all, we can address that issue for you.
But it's important to also note, anyone that's driven down there, and hopefully there's residents on the street, that parking lot's half full all the time. So, I mean, excessive parking requirements prohibit business, and we certainly
don't disagree with you.
Right.
Jeff, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, just please, one question. I mean, I was kind of unclear on the application. Is O'Connell's acquiring the property, or is this becoming are they buying it, or is this a lease or a rent?
I'm leasing to O'Connell.
You're leasing to them?
Correct.
Okay, because within the ordinance, I'm just to clarify, under 8447, it states that the owner, the applicant is the owner and occupier of the premises.
That was
or
the
has
first
a valid
question.
purchase and sale agreement.
Right. That was the first question that I asked, because I could have rented this to a resident. We wouldn't even be here right now, and I'd be getting the same amount of money. That was the first question that I had asked Aaron Vega when we had a meeting with him in the very, very beginning. And he said, you are allowed to lease to a tenant that would occupy your property for the special permit. And he pointed it out to me. I'm sorry, I'm in my car. I got no notice of this meeting, and I'm doing the best that I can.
This is, so if I just please clarify that this really isn't a public meeting. The public meeting is what you'll be going before DGR. This is the board discussing a comment review letter that then gets sent to DGR. So this is not a public meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
While we have you here, can I just for our knowledge in terms of the numbers. So you said they have 4 employees, but people aren't coming and going.
Correct.
Is there anybody else who needs to park there? There are residents who live in the residences.
There's
above?
only one residence. There's 2 apartments above. I have 1 anesthesiologist on the 3rd floor, and then I have 1 professional on the 2nd floor.
So like how many? So 1 residence and 2.
So it's a 3-family house, and
Yep.
the 1st floor will have the 4 people in it. 2nd floor, I think we're required to have 2 spaces per unit.
Yeah.
You know, we have 2 and the other 2 on the 3rd floor, which we have the building and the lot next door to, you know, if there's a need for more, we have that too. I try to keep everybody off the street out of respect for my neighbors.
Okay, so 2 apartments. And then and then 1 residence on the 3rd floor.
1 commercial on the 1st floor, and then 2 residential units, 2nd and 3rd floor.
Oh, okay. Got it. So the commercial on the 1st floor and then 2 apartments, and that's it for the building. Okay. I mean, that'll help us with figuring out what numbers. And as Jeff said, we're just sending a letter over to the city council with
Sure.
recommendations.
Right.
And then they'll make the decision.
Excellent. Any other questions?
I see Nathan's hand up. Nathan?
Yeah, I think like Jeff said, I mean the ordinance, the way PUD is described is one of the main purposes to assure residences can retain their owner residence by allowing for some limited mixed use on the lower floor. That's my understanding. So I think that's my understanding of the ordinance. And if some staff member communicate in a different way that you don't need to be an owner resident to have the business there. Maybe there might be something that you need clarification on. And the second part is I'm looking at I'm looking at 8.4.1 general section. And it says, upon the issuance of special permit from the city council, no more than one professional office or studio per parcel of land may be located in an existing structure on said parcel in the professional office overlay district. So I don't, it might have been a different ordinance when you got 2 special permits, but it sounds like the way the ordinance is written, at least as of this moment, you cannot have more than one business that has a special permit in a particular structure.
Right, that's correct.
Yeah,
And it was
right.
unclear at the time, and that's why
Right.
we were able to get it. And then after we got the 2, you folks changed it, which makes
Right.
total sense, and I agree with.
Right.
So
Okay.
we're not looking for 2. We're just looking for another spot. I'm leaving, they're coming in. That's all we're looking for, which will have
Okay.
a lesser impact on the neighborhood. Really, it's going to be no different because I'm moving next door and my operation is going to be next door. You know, and then you're going to have another business in this location, which is another, you know, Holyoke company, O'Connell. You know, I think we're all just trying to keep Holyoke strong and keep business in Holyoke and keep people in Holyoke. I think that's an important thing, especially with what's in today's day and age and the economy and stuff like that. I think it's important to have a strong sense of community and business, especially for people that are from Holyoke.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you. Thank you very much for your passion. So whether the ordinance is written appropriately right now or not is a whole other matter. But as it's written and it's applied, if the ordinance requires somebody in the hood, the red business occupying the hood to be the resident owner, I mean, it is what it is. So again, that's something for you and city staff, and I guess for everyone to clarify together. Thank you.
And I would just add here, I don't think that anyone is disagreeing or disapproving with what you're trying to accomplish here. And the planning board does not actually write these ordinances. We just apply them and occasionally get to make a recommendation. And in this case, as others have already said, this is going to be the city council's ultimate decision. But I have no doubt we're going to find a way to make this work for you.
Thank you very much. That means a lot.
And so, Alex, anything else that you wanted to bring up at this point?
Yes. I'd like to zoom in here a moment. There's just a little confusion regarding the general notes section.
Mm-hmm.
And this is still regarding the parking. On one hand, in the general notes section, the applicant asserts that 8 spaces can be provided for immediately on site. The proponent has reached an agreement with the neighboring tenants and owner of the office building across Sydney Avenue to lease up to 5 parking spaces from them, producing a total of 9 off-street parking spaces with an easy reach of 1763. It does go on to elaborate that the neighboring office area totals 4,550 square feet, which requires the 15 parking spaces at a ratio of 1 for every 300 square feet of use. The existing paved area can accommodate up to 20 spaces, leaving a surplus of 5. They go on to elaborate that the 4 proposed on-site parking spaces would occur in approximately the same footprint as the existing surface parking area, and a total of 8 cars can currently be parked on the site. So within the 2 statements, they seem to conflict with one another, and just wanted to get clarification on the total number of spaces. The first statement is that they'd be producing a potential of 9 off-street parking spaces, and the last section states a total of 8 cars. Now we're having the discussion regarding
I think we took a lot of verbiage from the original application for the special permits back in 2005. My architect, the engineer, he's 85 years old, did this as a favor to me. Ron Goodrow, another Holyoke great guy, who's built most of the Holyoke credit unions all in the region. And he probably made a clerical error and didn't write that correctly. But I can assure you, if you go over there, there's more parking than anybody could even use.
Certainly, that's understandable.
Right, but I think it's also important to have the verbiage on, seeing that this was the only submittal. I think it's important to have the verbiage accurate, so that way, going down the road, people will understand what they're reading.
Sure. Have you guys done any site visits there? Have you been down there? I'd encourage a site visit if you've got any question about anything.
That might be something to think about, since we're discussing the parking and the sidewalk and what that looks
Just know
like.
that this is on the DGR committee's agenda for 12/18. So, you know, I mean, again, this is just a review letter based on the ordinance.
Nathan?
Thank you, Mimi. Yeah, I know Mr. Paul Gallagher stated it just now, but I think one thing I was not clear about the application that might be helpful is the name of the business makes it sound like it's a nursing home facility. And
It's
I
not the-
understand. Right, so the application in writing probably needs to specify that this is purely a professional office for employees of the home care business, not that the building itself is gonna be facilitating home care. Because my understanding is the Poo district allows for limited professional offices, and I understand nursing homes is not one of the allowed uses. Correct me if I'm wrong, Alex and Jeff. But I think because the name of the business and the general description of in the application, it can be kind of confusing, and it would be helpful to clarify that, especially when you present your application to the city council's DGR subcommittee. Thank you.
Okay, and Kate?
So it seems to me like from everything that we've heard from the applicant, I don't really have any concerns that there's not going to be enough parking. It seems like there's more than enough parking here for what they're proposing. I think it behooves us to recommend to the city council that they are clear that they understand what the uses of the building are, but I would suggest that if there's any concern about whether these numbers work out, that we simply recommend that the applicant should ask for a parking, a reduction of the parking requirement, because I don't believe that we should be insisting that this applicant needs to make sure that they can find whatever it is, 15 spaces. That seems excessive, and I'd rather just move on from that. And I think that Alex, I think you probably have more to say, but the letter that you've shown us, it's great to point out in all the detail to the city council what they ought to be questioning to make sure that this fits the ordinance. But what I'd love to see is like a paragraph or two at the beginning, that just for the lay reader, which I think everybody on the city council is going to be, just explains in a more narrative form what the real questions here are, because my worry is that anybody not intimately versed in the ordinance is going to look at this letter and just not even know where to begin. I think that's something that in general I'd love to see us do, is just like give somebody the highlights so they know what they're really trying to figure out here. Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing kind of going along with that is, like Kate, I see no reason to be concerned about the actual adequacy of the parking. But if this could be revised so that there is no confusion and any of the little discrepancies based on, somebody was just taking numbers from an older plan is resolved before the city council sees this, it may be easier for them to understand what they're looking at. And we won't have to explain that, just ignore those general notes. There is a conflict there, but don't worry about it. If the application papers make it clear what's actually available, then I think it's easier for the city council to say, yes, this is fine, just take this back to the planning board with an application for a reduction in parking, and there should not be a problem with it. But that's pure tactics. That's not substance.
Is Alex going to continue on his letter?
Oh, yes.
Or-
Yes. There's only a couple of remaining items that worth noting. Just regarding open space, at cursory glance of the plan, it doesn't really specifically spell out that 30% of the front yard is to remain open space or vegetated. And beyond that, we don't see any refuse disposal plans for either the tenants or for the office use. They weren't dictated in the general notes nor drawn on the plans, so we would just seek clarification on that as well.
I received the trash waiver, so I have 3 barrels from the city, and that's what we used to throw out. At the Gotham McLean building that I bought, we have a dumpster, so I mean.
But now that would be a trash waiver for your real estate agency, but not necessarily O'Connell, so then he would have to apply for it himself.
Well, I'll let them throw their trash in my dumpster. That way nobody's upset. How about that?
I'm not upset.
Yeah, once
I
again,
just want everything to go as flawlessly as possible for you. And so I think it'd be in the best interest of O'Connell's to apply for the waiver themselves.
Sure. It would be helpful to have guidance with this stuff, because when we go down and we talk to people in planning or the clerk's office, it's like, it's hard to figure all this out. Then we come here and it's like, we should have had this and that. If I had known all this stuff, I would have had it all in there. And that's my feedback as someone coming to you folks. We want to see more development and stuff. I think it would be helpful to have a lot more guidance from whoever over there, so that you folks, who I really appreciate, you're giving all your personal time to, can make these decisions.
But I think even if I then may offer them, Paul, the ordinance pretty much spells it out. It asks for trash. So now this is just the answering of this question of the applicant. What's you're going to do with trash? But I mean, so this is the first time that's been vetted.
Jeff,
but
they're going to throw it in the trash barrel. That's what they're going to do with the trash.
Thanks, Paul.
You're welcome.
And that's more or less all I have, unless Jeff, I don't know if I've missed anything here, but that should cover it.
yeah. One other point that was not directly raised by your letter is, Jeff has just raised something, that could matter down the road. And that's that normally we would have a sign off from the actual lessor operator applying for all of this. And, it is great that you, Mr. Gallagher, are doing this for them. But I think for our purposes, it would be helpful if they could sign off on the application to the city council.
I agree. Again, guidance would be helpful, and
Of course.
telling us to do it. I mean, we were happy to do whatever you folks need us to do.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. And I don't disagree with you. It's been a long time since we had enough staff to really dig in and start producing the kinds of guidance for the public that I think, would be helpful to everybody.
Right.
We're in favor of getting that done, basically. And, you should not have to go to economic development and be told stuff about planning that really is not necessarily their focus.
I agree with you.
So the only thing that's going to be a problem, and I'm going to be the bearer of bad news, is just that, I mean, and let's see how it's going to come out in our letter, is that under the last item, number 7, the applicant is the owner and occupier of the premises or has a valid DNS.
I read somewhere it could be a tenant. Your boss, Aaron Vega, told me that. Again, first question I asked. So, I mean, maybe you could discuss it with him.
So that's all I've got. That would be the part of the last outstanding issue or item.
So yeah, I mean, I'm sorry if the process has been confusing, but you can kind of treat the ordinance as a checklist. It's 8.4 largely. 8.4 is the put section. You can kind of go through like a checklist, and see if you meet the conditions. And the last condition in the 8.4 section, Jeff mentioned, the applicant is the owner, occupy the premises, or has a valid purchase and sale agreement. Again, sorry, I don't want to talk in circles, but that's what the ordinance says in writing. And if you got some kind of information verbally from somebody that contradicts with the writing, I think typically the writing would supersede.
Well,
So thank you. Sorry, I apologize, Chair Mimi. I'm gonna stop talking, and thank you very much.
No, you're making a very reasonable point, and I was just talking over you because, I dropped the ball here because I did not look at the section itself. If it says owner occupier, we had better check with legal and make sure that everything is clear here. Because Mr. Gallagher is clearly the owner, he is not going to be the occupier.
Well,
And-
just to clarify, I mean, all we're doing is writing a letter to the city council about, interpreting here, and they're the ones who make that determination ultimately, isn't?
Yeah, but I think it can't hurt to get the ball rolling on this. Because, I'm sure, I don't know that this is something that they want to have a problem with.
Right.
But yet another reason why you should go to, why the city should understand that you have to go to planning for planning questions. So Alex, I think you said that you were through with your points.
Yes, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, we will take this. We will finalize a letter to the city council.
Thank
And
you for your time. Thank you all.
thank you.
Thanks.
So Mimi, I see that we have Davin on. I don't know if you
Yes.
see that. Okay.
I did see that, and thank you. I hope that the household emergency was not too horrible, and we can go back to the short-term rentals question.
Alex, can you give Davin
Yeah.
permission?
Just finished. You're all set down. All right, you should be all set there.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. I don't really have anything to add to the discussion at this point. I had mentioned the building code coming into effect early 2024. I did send along an example of the Quincy short-term rental ordinance that I thought may be helpful in our discussions. But that's pretty much as far as I personally have gotten with this. I don't really know where to take it from here, whether we meet about this in person and hash it out, or if I'm even involved in that process.
Yeah, I'm not sure that any of us know. And we also don't know what the city council is going to do and whether they're going to deem all of the outstanding orders from the last city council to be no longer valid and start all over again from scratch. So perhaps the best thing to do is just to wait and see where all of this comes down.
Yeah. So yeah, the main thing with the building code was inspections. It was pretty much the requirements for somebody running a short-term rental, posting properly and all that kind of stuff, and you know, the frequency of inspections that could be made on behalf of the city, and then that's really it in terms of the building code, and that's kind of what we're waiting for. It's I sent over the draft, and it's, you know, it's one of those things where it's likely to be put into place, but no one really knows until it's actually done. So that's
Yeah.
that's
So
all
that's
that we're waiting for. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, we need to just go back and think about policy and what we actually want to do about allowing short-term rentals and where. And
Right.
then we can fill in everything else when we know about what the code is going to tell us.
Right. Right. That's what I believe. Yep.
In reading through the Quincy ordinance, you know, if we're sitting down and really looking at that, do you see any areas in which we might need to do things differently, or concerns you have
Yeah,
about
so-
that, if you remember it that closely?
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me once again, but I do know that it is pretty extensive. Now, I don't think we're similar to populace as Quincy is, but I don't think ours needs to be as extensive as that one. But I do believe they had a pretty solid definition section, and they really laid it out. So I think we could cherry pick depending on where we want to go with it. I don't have specifics at this time, but as I'm kind of just thinking loud now, I do know that there's a lot of postings online, Airbnb and VRBO and like that I could kind of try and see where a lot of these rentals are. That might be a good starting point, and see if the ordinance that we want to put together targets certain zones, or is barred from certain zones, and such like that.
Yeah, that would be great. I would love to know where they are.
Sure. I will get on it.
Thank you. Okay, you look like you're thinking deeply.
What I'm doing is searching through my email and trying to find the Quincy code that he sent us, and I just found it, so I'm very pleased. Just means that now I have something else I have to read.
Okay, well,
we have this continued to our next meeting. And then at the meeting after that is when we're talking, in theory, talking to ordinance about it again. So I guess I'm going to commit to reading the Quincy ordinance before our next meeting, so that we can actually maybe make some time to talk about it in more specifics.
yeah, likewise.
That sound like the plan?
That sounds like an excellent plan. Does anyone have a better plan that they would like to suggest? Okay, no.
The 9th,
Sorry?
the 9th, our next meeting, the 9th, we're
Yeah.
gonna do it.
Yeah. Yes, we have a break. This actually leads beautifully into the next item on our agenda, which is meeting schedule tentative. And December 26th, no meeting. January 9th, we've got short-term rentals discussion. We have tiny house discussion.
And we have the continuation of ESG
Oh,
just
thank you.
added tonight. Yep.
Yes. I
And
knew-
the small wireless.
Smart wireless has my brain fried.
Oh,
Oh,
and I had mentioned to Aaron that we'd love to sort of get an update from him about what's happening on the economic development, from the economic development side of the office. So I'm not 100% certain that he's coming on the 9th, but he's sounded amenable to that.
that would be great.
Yeah, I talked to him yesterday afternoon and he said he'd be here on the 9th.
Awesome.
Okay.
Somebody's knocking on my door. I'm sorry for the interruption, but gotta check.
Okay, so January 23rd. Wait for Nathan.
What you see on the agenda is what we have. Nothing else has been added to that one.
Yay.
We have a joint meeting. I don't know about the yay.
Well, we won't know. That's going to be our first meeting with the new ordinance committee.
Ah, Angry Birds.
Who knows?
Okay, do we have anything else for February 13th yet?
Not according to me.
Well, you would know.
And Jeff would know.
I've got nothing else at this point.
Maybe I don't also know if you can see others on the line, but there is another person on the line. I don't know what topic she was here for.
What, I'm sorry, what was that?
There's a Lori on the line.
She was
I don't-
Laura, oh, sorry, yeah.
Go ahead if you know. Just didn't want to be forgetting.
No, I thought you were
someone.
talking about the other woman, Danielle Lord. I saw Danielle Lord earlier.
Yeah, I think she was taking notes for Paul Gallagher.
She was, correct. She was from, I looked her up. She's on, she works for O'Connell's.
Okay.
And I don't know
Lo-
what Lori is here for. I just assume that she
Laura,
would.
Laura is my friend who's, I mean, she can speak for herself if she wishes, but she's attending the meeting as a member of the interested member of the public.
Yeah, that was kind of my assumption on the grounds that anybody who was here for a specific topic would jump in and say so. Kate?
Can we just go back to the POOD review for a minute? Because I know I just sort of pressed on Alex to do a intro paragraph or something, and so I don't know whether that's something that would happen in-house or if you all want one of us to do that. I want to sort of help. I just worry that the city council is not going to pay any attention to the letter if it doesn't have some way to ease them into it. And so I don't know whether it helps to have one of us try to be the translator, but from somewhere in between the planning professionals and the lay people, or whether that's something that.
Yeah, no, in the past, it seems, oh, Jeff, go ahead.
I'm sorry, just a couple things, and this is about the POOD in general.
Yeah.
So I don't, you may not recall, but the POOD was created back in the day because of the formerly was United Cooperative Building, bank building, which now I think now is United Bank. It could have since been sold to M&T, but it's at the corner of Courser and Northampton Street. That building was demolished, and what happened was the neighbors were out. There was an outcry because the previous building was a lovely. There's actually pictures of it. I've seen it in City Hall someplace with the building that was formerly there, and it was a lovely old building from say the 1800s. I mean, it was a vintage building that got torn down for the bank. So there was a bunch of people that came out in opposition to further development of these buildings, or rather buying of these buildings for demolition to then be built out in commercial for commercial uses. So in this case, I think it was Ray Fair back in the 80s. He came up with this idea, and it was vetted through the city council and approved as the Professional Office Overlay District, also known as Northampton Street Overlay District, and that kind of thing. But regardless, you know, the whole idea behind the ordinance was that it was owner occupied, therefore there was pride in ownership. It wasn't absentee landlords. And I'm not opposed to this project. I'm just speaking in general. It's I'm just talking generalities for the POOD. That's why it's there, to allow for people that, like, even Mark Pijar back in the day, you know, well, for what it's worth, he moved his mother upstairs so he could operate his insurance company out of the building, but she was living upstairs. At one point, I think Ferreter was his father might have been living upstairs, and he was operating downstairs the law office. But that was the original purpose. And then it got changed in the early 2000s because the idea was, well, you didn't have to live there, but the owner of the business had to be, the owner of the building had to be the same as the owner of the business. Again, it was that whole idea behind pride and ownership. But if the desire of the city is to change it, I mean, that's up to the city, obviously, or the city council. But the original intent, or the intent, was not to have absentee landlords, despite the fact where the owner, you know, whether he occupies a business next door, which, just an FYI, the former Hoyle Pediatrics, now Goss and McLean, now potentially, or now future Gallagher Real Estate, that is zoned BL. So that's a situation where that is a business spot zone in the sea of R2 and the POOD, for that matter. So, I mean, that's kind of just the quick backstory to why we are where we are. In the early 2000s as well, a group did try to come in and remove it. And then later the council backpedaled and said, oh, no, we don't want to get rid of it. We want to keep it. But they further tightened it up a little, or I shouldn't say tightened it. They released it a bit. And that's where it had to be owner occupied, but not necessarily in the form of, you know, living there. But that's why it is what it is. So I'm just throwing it out.
Can I ask
I
a question?
appreciate that, Jeff. That's a good background. I don't know how you remember all of that.
Because Jeff is very smart and he retains a bunch of information. Can I ask a question though? So, Jeff, were you around when the attorney upstairs apparently got a special permit? Like, because that's technically not his business, although he was there, although he had the business on the first.
And that was
How'd that happen?
That was a handshake deal. It was the big discrepancy. It was amazing because they jointly owned the building, and there was a question. There was a legal question as to whether or not that he could even have a lawyer in his building, being a broker. I mean, there was some. I mean, again, there was a whole. We can probably pull the notes or whatever on it. But
yeah, no, it's fine. I'm just wondering if you knew offhand.
It was a jointly owned business. They both owned it in LLC or something like that. I don't know. But that's how they did it. And then later she moved on.
Got it.
So yeah, he said that they were both in there and that he bought her out. I think that's what he said.
Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
So anyways, it's just, you know, and the idea of like, even, and again, I don't want to talk about, well, it's not even a public hearing topic, so maybe we can talk about it, but it's just, it's a case where even when it comes to simple as I mean, there seemed to be a clear argumentative side there, and that's unfortunate. But I mean, outside of, I mean, we didn't know about the trash till this evening. So because at one point when I brought up the trash, that's when the applicant on some level then came back with well, no one tells us these things. But honestly, we probably wouldn't have known that even if we had met with him in advance and walked him through the whole process, because there was no, I mean, that just happened to come up as a discussion item today. I mean, we still wouldn't have known it back then necessarily. So I'm always offended when I hear people say that there's not enough guidance, because honestly, I feel like all I do all day is guide people. I spent 6 hours today guiding people. That's all we did today was guide people. So when I hear people say that they're not receiving that input, then they're not asking the right questions, or they're not coming to the right people, because all we do is guide people all day. We spent so much time on this letter and going through these plans and trying to figure this out, and it just feels like the whole thing was wasted. And not that I'm trying to screw the guy over by any means, but if you know, it's just frustrating because all we do is guide people.
Yes, no, I get it. And I am frustrated along with you. And I think, you know, I spend a stupid amount of time telling people who have at least come to me casually that no, you know, you do not go to the director of planning and economic development for questions about planning specifically. It is not his core job, and he'll try to help you, but the professional knowledge is at the other end of the office. And, I think once I have explained that, people usually come and bother you and ask you for guidance. But if people don't know that, it is natural for them to assume that it is Aaron's side of the office that they ought to ask. And one of the things that seems to happen all over this city, and to a certain extent, I give everybody credit for it, they're trying, is civilians come and ask for guidance about stuff, and whoever they go to tries to help them. And sometimes they don't know how to help them. Think back to that, was it East Hampton Savings Bank or some other savings bank where somebody spent months looking for a special permit for an ATM? And they finally got to you and you explained to them that, no, we don't have a permit for an ATM. What you're looking for is a drive-through permit, and here's
Right.
how you do it.
Right.
By then, half the city council wanted to kill all of the city staff because they thought we were somehow denying a special permit for an ATM.
Right.
Nobody knows this stuff, and I don't want to suggest that city staff, whoever you are, should not be trying to help somebody who comes to you with a question. But this is what happens if they come to the wrong person.
Sure.
And well, again, I'm not saying this to throw anybody in Aaron's office under the bus. It's just.
You're correct, Mimi. You're totally correct. Like, I felt bad when he said I went to Aaron. I'm like, why would you go to him? Like, to me,
Well,
that's just common sense.
Because why wouldn't you? I mean, we know better than most
But he
people.
doesn't know the numbers. Like, if anybody knows anything, Jeff knows the numbers and the laws, and you know what I'm
Oh, yeah.
saying? Like, why would you not go to Jeff? Like, why would you ask Aaron? Like, Aaron has an idea, but he doesn't know. So now he misguided you, and now you're upset when you just asked the wrong person.
Yeah, and one of the things that every so often I mutter about, and I never seem to have time to do it, but some kind of document out there that says, hello, person, you want to start a business. Here's who you go to. Hello, you want to build something. Here's where you go to. Talk to the buildings commissioner before you start doing your own electrical rewiring. All of this stuff, people don't know it, and then they get into trouble, and then they're mad.
So to further on Kate's comments, though, concerning the paragraphs, again, we've typically there's three things that the board has historically said that they want review of, because there's other things too that come back to the planning department that like we review on behalf of the board, say, which, is like motor vehicle stuff. But, some cell towers, well, actually, no, cell tower stuff, some reviews, but typically it's historically always been the POOD, it's been the POOD, it's been marijuana, and it's drive-throughs. Those are the three things that I've heard in my time that the board wanted review letters from. That we would fall in line with the ordinances. So those are the three that you would typically see. I know there's been times where we've been invited, or the board's been invited, and this dates back probably to 2013-ish. If you recall, we had some joint hearings with ordinance concerning, because you were invited to some various automobile or motor vehicle related things. So then in the past, the boards had some input to those. But those are technically the three that the board has. It's either it's in the ordinance, or the board has historically said that they want review powers of, this being one of them. So with that, like I said, but we've always treated it as a checklist because that's the way we've been directed or guided. As far as my concern about adding a paragraph to the front, I'm not opposed to it. It's just that unless you bring up everything in that paragraph, if there's something else that's desired and it's not in that paragraph, are they then gonna or is it almost, it's more narrative form than checklist form? And I'm not opposed to that. It's just that how do we if all they're going to focus is on the paragraph, but there might be something that's also relevant but not paragraph worthy, how do we then get them to acknowledge the other items as well?
Well, I understand that that's a concern. I guess I envision, maybe I'm wrong. I envision the paragraphs as a way to ease them into the checklist.
Okay.
Because I think in my limited experience working with the city council and knowing the volume of things that they are taking on as their responsibility, and the limited extent to which they understand what the planning side of it, I think, you know, most of them are going to look at that letter and be like, well, it's a long list of checklist. And I think they need to be eased into it by saying, like, there's a major concern about parking XYZ. This could be taken care of either by insisting that they have these parking spaces or giving them a parking reduction. And, you know, maybe there's a paragraph that says it's still a concern about the owner occupied. Perhaps this is something you need to consider whether you're changing. And maybe there's one other, I haven't like conceptualized in my head all the stuff about what's in the checklist, but I honestly think they're not going to pay attention to the checklist unless we kind of tell them why to care. And, you know, I get why there's the first question about, like, ask the applicant to tell you more about what the business is, but I think they're just going to read that and go like, that's O'Connell's. We know O'Connell's, and not understand that the reasoning behind that question is to find out how many cars are there going to be and how often are people are coming or going and what's the use, so that we can see whether the parking works. I just honestly think they're not going to understand the letter without
I
having
think
their hands held.
describing an executive summary, basically. And it's not rare to have an executive summary attached to a much longer and more detailed document, probably on the assumption that, you know, your audience of board members, 3 out of 13 are going to actually read the entire document and care what's in it.
Right. I said, I don't disagree. I just wanted to make sure, I don't want to, so therefore then those opening paragraphs then are essentially touching upon everything. Because again, we don't know how they're going to read these documents. I'm just trying in my mind to figure out how we can integrate that and not lose sight of some of the smaller things that, you know, might be still of importance, but not as important as the primary issues.
Yeah. Well, I imagine it would be a work in process trying to figure out exactly what we're doing. And in this case, probably we would want something like, we would note here that the diagrams were not entirely accurate. Errors have crept in over many iterations. The city council might want to ask for revised documents that accurately show the property and just not go into all of the things that are wrong with the documents. But once again, I see Nathan, and I'm going to shut up and let him talk now. It's 2 a.m. here.
Oh, thank you. One way, you know, I know checklist format has a lot of benefits, especially for detailed applications and reviews. So one way is, you know, keep the checklist, highlight in red or whatever color each part that's problematic, items in the checklist problematic, and then put a very brief narrative at the top saying, you know, checklist item 476 have problems, you know, and then maybe briefly describe or just tell them, please look at them more carefully.
Yeah. Well, I like color coding. Thank you. Okay, so Sharon has signed off for the evening since it's her last night of vacation. And Kate, was there anything more you wanted to add to this?
I don't think so.
Okay. Normally I would volunteer to do a draft of this, but I too am on vacation, and I'm not sure you want to wait for me to remember that I'm supposed to be doing it.
So if we want to do an executive summary, I'm going to ask that we can certainly start the draft, and then if someone could please review it, but I'm going to say that we definitely need someone to, a board member to sign off on it so that we can get it to the council. And I'm assuming they'll want it for, I mean, does Jeffrey do his meeting or his agenda or his, I think he does his correspondences to the council on Thursdays. So it's just that, we've got, we're confined to a time period of sorts.
I can do something tomorrow afternoon.
Okay.
I was just gonna say me too if need be.
And I'm happy to try to collaborate on it. I just, I'm running out of time for stuff that I actually have on my calendar here.
You have to actually enjoy your vacation.
Yeah. Well, I am. I hope to. Anyway, do email me. I will try to be coherent, or at least say, yes, that's what we want to do. And with that,
mean, since it was my idea, I'm happy to collaborate with Jeff or Alex or whoever, tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, thank you. And on to minutes. We have one set of minutes, and I have read them. I don't see a problem with them. I think that these were held up because at some point Sharon had the idea that I did have a problem with this set, but in fact, I don't. So unless somebody else does, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll move that we approve the zone change best minutes from October 24th, 2023.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Roll call.
By roll call vote, Nathan,
Yes.
Bjornander,
Yes.
Rosanna,
Yes, sir.
Kate,
It's so funny to hear you say something different. Yes.
and Mimi.
Yes, thank you. And this brings us to our last item, an important one, which has to do with vacation carryover for our staff.
So thank you. Once again this year, the mayor is refusing to honor vacation buybacks and that kind of thing, even though it is a contractual within a signed contract. But we are seeking to, myself and Alex both have 5 days of vacation that we are hoping to be able to carry over to 2024. The way the ordinance, or rather the contract reads, is that it's the appointing authority, and in that case, these positions are appointed technically by the planning board. The actual document does say department head, but it's just because the personnel office hasn't created two different files or forms. So anyways, at this point, speaking on behalf of myself and Alex, we both have 5 days left for vacation that we haven't accounted for yet this year, and we'd like to carry it and are just seeking that, or asking the board that they could sign off. I mean, under the circumstances, we need this signed by the 22nd, to the best of my recollection. So if someone was willing to sign off on it, that would be great.
I'll sign that.
Thank you.
Unless.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we vote to have Gurninder sign off on behalf of the board to let Jeff and Alex carry over 5 days.
Why not? Yes.
Is there a
Sure.
second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
By roll call vote, Nathan,
Yes.
Bjornander,
Yes.
Rosanna,
Yes, sir.
Yes.
and Mimi.
Yes.
Happy vacation.
happy vacation. If there is any issue with anybody's ability to get downtown to sign anything, I should be back and more or less functional by the 20th. So I will be around as a fallback.
Thank
But
you.
I am very
Thank you.
happy for Gernander to sign off on this thing.
Yeah, just let me know when to come and sign it. I will.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We'll let you know. Thank you.
Is there anything else that anybody needs to bring up tonight?
Yes, Madam Chair, I do.
Yes, sir.
You guys know about the Target warehouse in Westfield?
I haven't heard anything recently.
Yep, recently what they doing, not holding air like this, but they're holding the air like this. So what the Target's gonna do, they're gonna sell the property to P&S property management something. And they're going to the planning board on the 12/19/23 of 7 p.m. room 207 to do the same amount warehouse, same big warehouse and the same amount of truck, loading dock and everything, but they don't have a tenant. So what they're trying to do, what we came to the conclusion, so they're gonna build the same warehouse the Target's supposed to build, and then they're gonna lease it to the Target. So that's what is coming up. So if anything, you can find it before the 19th. I'm gonna go to the meeting that day. So it's in the 12/19/2023, 7 p.m. next Tuesday.
So I'm sorry, you just said you can go?
Yeah, I'm gonna go.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
So if you guys can, behalf of planning board, write some kind of letter to give it to them and see what our concerns are.
Did we write a letter before? Can we just recycle that?
Because the different because we write for because the target's not the applicants now. Applicants is P&S.
Well, but we could presumably revise our earlier letter to simply say, we have not heard the details of this project, but from what we have heard so far, we have the same concerns about it that were reflected in our letter of whatever the date was, which we're attaching here too. And, if we knew more, obviously, there'd be an opportunity to write a new letter. But I assume that our concerns are exactly what they were.
Okay. So maybe I didn't go to their website or check their agenda. It should be in their agenda. So like how we post our agenda a week before or 4 days before, maybe they did it today or tomorrow. I don't know that, so I can check into that one.
Well, it won't necessarily be it won't necessarily be on their agenda, but I bet there are a bunch of materials because Target had to go through a whole lot of state review last time. And we have a friend on the Westfield Planning Board who I would have hoped would alert us if there were new information incoming. But
what was his name?
That was Bill Corellis.
Bill. So yeah, I'll try to call tomorrow and see if I can get any information. Yeah. That's it for my side. Thank you.
I wonder if is Sharon going to be back in the office?
You said today
Sharon,
stay of vacation. I don't.
Sharon might be back for Friday, but the issue is that I think there's been a death in the family, and I'm not sure when those accommodations are going to be made, and that she might be coming back in advance of the funeral to go to the funeral. So I'm not really sure if we'll see her this week in office or not.
Okay, we're just wondering if Jeff or Alex could sort of get back into the files to see what we had sent over to Westfield before and just pull that and clean it up in some way.
Yeah, we'll check that out.
Yeah.
That was relatively recent. I mean, recent could be, you know, it
Wasn't
feels,
that
you
long
know,
ago, yeah.
right. It could have been late 22 and it feels recent, so.
It feels recent. I thought that they had managed to completely relocate the project and it was dead, dead, dead. So it's depressing to have it come back to life this way.
Yeah. I mean, and I imagine either, like, if you revise it, either Mimi can e-sign it, or I guess I could come down and sign. It just might be nice if it, like, the signer was somebody other than Gurinder who's gonna go, just so that it has more than one name attached to it. In a way.
Yep.
But I'd be happy to sign if the e-sign doesn't work.
And I will see whether, I don't have all of my normal meeting materials here, but I can check through my old email and see if I can pull up at least the date, possibly the letter itself. I remember we had competition to read it.
Yeah, my hope is
Yeah,
that by moving to the Google Drive, it might be easier for me to find things in the past. So I want to thank Sharon and everybody else there for trying the brave new world of trying to get us things that way.
Oh, thank you. And the next brave world is Google Team Drive.
Ah! My head explodes.
No more Google products.
Nathan, let me deal with one thing at a time, please.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, about the, we was talking about businesses before in Holyoke, I keep giving suggestion to the city, because a lot of city does that out of this state. They have one window. Anybody want to do a business onto that city, so they go to that window and they pick up the envelope. There are applications for everybody: electrician, plumbing, building department, health department, license department, you name it. So they take the whole package, go back, fill out everything, and drop it back to the same place. And that windows spread all the application. So here in Holyoke, being a businessman, it is tough, very, very tough, because each time we had to, this one is not available, this inspection didn't happen. It's very complicated. I when Alex was here, our mayor, I told him the same thing. I told Mr. Garcia, I say, you got to make it easy somewhere for the business to bring it in. I had a friend who's a realtor, a big realtor in New York, and when I came to the planning board, I was talking to him. I said, hey, we have a lot of opportunity in Holyoke to do some kind of business, and the way he look at it, he's like, oh, and then I'm gonna pass it. I was like, what happened? He says, I see him, it's very tough to do business in Holyoke. Businessman is time. Time is the money for them, right? So that suggestion, I passed it several times, but nothing worked on it. And
I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of businesses in Holyoke that were trying to start have moved to Chicopee. That's why Chicopee is celebrating a new business every other week.
Yes, yes, they are.
Because they rather
Yes,
go
they
to
are.
Chicopee because it's a lot easier than to do it here.
Yep.
We're losing a
It
lot of
is.
small businesses. People that live here would rather put their businesses over there.
Yeah, and it's gonna happen a lot. Believe it or
Just
not.
know that our Board of Health Director gave his resignation yesterday after working here 8 years, and he's moving on. So now we don't have a Board of Health Director.
Good. There you go.
Good, because he was terrible for small businesses.
I don't want to comment on that, because I know I deal with that, and I don't know. It's like every year some kind of new fees. like for us, like for the just to renew the license, emergency light. Now I had to hire an electrician for an hour and a half to see if they are working or they can take the load. They're, their working condition before last year used the building department and the fire department used to come in and see if they're working, good to go. But now it's an extra burden on the small business. And this year, especially, the businesses are already, you know how the economy is, market is. But hey, you know what? Let's see how long we'll last like that. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
You,
I just found the letter we sent about Westfield last year and I forwarded it to Alex and Jeff.
Wow, you good.
I
So-
love you, Kate.
I don't know, it was like a miracle. Anyway, it should be in your inboxes.
Who you send it to?
Thank you.
I sent it to Alex and to Jeff so that they could just
Okay.
update it.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, I guess partly I sent it to them also because I didn't want to, I don't want to send something to everybody and run into some open meeting law. So like the staff can send it out to whoever needs it.
Right. Okay, that's fine.
okay,
I mean, obviously, which includes Gurninder if he's going to go talk, but
okay. Is there anything else?
Have a cup of coffee, 3 o'clock in the morning, right? What time is there?
she's going to bed.
Actually, it is 2:20, and I feel suddenly oddly awake.
Oh my God, Mimi, I'm so sorry. That's the worst.
Well, perhaps it will wear
Well,
off.
when are you coming back?
All right.
Okay, motion to adjourn, anyone?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
By roll call vote. Nathan,
Yes.
Gurninder,
Yes.
Rosanna,
Yes, sir.
Kate,
Yes.
and Mimi.
Yes. Thank you all
And
and continued.
good night.
Night.
Night, everybody.
Yeah.